Meggie is a second generation Vietnamese American. And today she's going to chat a little bit about traveling with a mental illness. She has OCD, social anxiety, intergenerational trauma. She'd love to tell you more about what it's like traveling with these. She's sharing practical resources on her website, Mindful Meggie, and she's just a wonderful human being. I got to talk to her on my own podcast a few months ago. Super sweet, and we're so excited to extend the floor to you, Meggie, so you can teach us everything, everything we need to know or we may need to hear.
Yeah. All right, everybody, let's go. I have lots of information to cover today, so let's go fast like Sonic the Hedgehog. So I am Mindful Meggie Tran. I'm a travel blogger and writer, and my mission is to destigmatize mental illnesses through travel. I want to share a very important disclaimer, though. I am not a doctor or therapist or mental health professional. I am just basing my advice off of my experiences. So please see your own mental health professional before basing any mental health decisions from me. Now, just a little bit about me. Like Leah said, I was diagnosed with OCD when I was 18 and social anxiety and intergenerational trauma when I was 20 and 21. Now, my mission is, like I said, to destigmatize mental illnesses through travel. I want to make travel more accessible for folks who have mental health issues like myself. And so I do this by sharing personal travel stories. Some of them are serious, some of them are funny. And I also share practical resources to make travel more accessible. I've written for many platforms this past year, the International OCD Foundation, Fodor's Travel, Dark Global. I've spoken at both of my colleges, Arizona State University and Mesa Community College, and OCD Southern California. Just a little fun fact about me. I am a pretty famous gamer in the Club Penguin community. Club Penguin was an old virtual world, and today there's still lots of penguins on there. If you want to follow my Club Penguin interests, my gaming interests, you can follow me on Twitter at Tech70CP. Now, here's some pictures of me traveling. A lot of these are recent. The one on the left is in New York City's Meatpacking District. Here, I am visiting 5 penguins from the Club Penguin community in real life in New York's financial district. Here I am in Dublin, Ireland, Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument in Arizona, and my study abroad trip to Costa Rica. So that's just a little bit of my travels. Now, let's go into the subject of mental illness. So when I think of this, I try to be as objective as I can. Mental illnesses are a real medical condition. It is not the true self. I might be having some heavy emotions, emotional stress. Despite knowing that mental illnesses are a health condition and it's not my fault, it's not anybody's fault, it's still very draining. And at the end of the day, I can feel very tired. Some mental illness symptoms are also hidden. I was able to hide my OCD symptoms for 8 years. I first exhibited them when I was about 10 years old, and I didn't reach out to my parents or my therapist until I was 18 years old. So I was able to keep my symptoms undercover really well. Now, this is a graphic I like to use to compare what a neurotypical person's day might look like versus my day with OCD and social anxiety. So a neurotypical person, like we all have things to deal with in our lives, right? Our everyday lives. But for a person with a mental health condition, they go through so much in their heads, and it's not always visible for other people. I go through so many, like with my OCD, I deal with obsessive thoughts and compulsive behaviors. With my social anxiety, I might get nervous in some social situations, say if I'm in riding public transportation. I might be a little bit more hypervigilant than the neurotypical person. I'll go about that a little bit more further on, but I just wanted to say that in a normal day for me, I go through a lot and it keeps me tired, but I still want to live the most fulfilling life I can. And for me, that's through travel. So this is what the neurotypical person's travels might look like versus my travels, where I have OCD as unwanted baggage. I can't leave OCD at home, unfortunately. So the average Joe, we all have our typical worries when we're traveling, right? For example, we want to make sure we are catching our plane on time. That's something we're all worried about. But I will have those travel worries plus stuff coming from my OCD, the intrusive, unwanted thoughts. They make no sense. They're very repetitive, and they can cause me intense anxiety and compulsive behaviors. So just a little bit about OCD. OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. The obsessions are the thoughts that are repetitive and make no sense, and the compulsive behaviors are supposed to quell those obsessive thoughts, but actually the more you do those behaviors, the more repetitive those thoughts get. So compulsive behaviors are bad. And the average Joe might also be present in the moment when they're traveling, like they're having a good time in whatever city or national park they are. But for me, with a mental health condition, my brain is more active than the average Joe's. If you look at a picture of a brain scan of a neurotypical person's brain versus a brain with OCD, you'll see that the person's brain with OCD has a lot more neural activity going on. So I'm constantly having these thoughts coming into my head. The average Joe would also be careful. Like, that's something we all have to do, right? To be vigilant and to make sure we're safe while we're traveling. But for me with OCD, I tend to be more hypervigilant than the average Joe. Let's say I am riding public transportation in Paris, and we all know that you're susceptible to pickpocketing in Paris. But one of my OCD symptoms is worrying about making sure that the zippers of my backpack have been zipped up and locked. Even if I see that those zippers have already been zipped up and locked, my OCD isn't convinced that they are. So my compulsive behavior might be to keep checking, to keep looking at my backpack zippers to make sure they're closed. And so with that, I just have to accept the uncertainty that, okay, maybe my zippers are open. But that is how I cope with my OCD. And then the average Joe would enjoy the trip as it unfolds. But unfortunately, with OCD, I also have perfectionism. So I often feel like my trip must absolutely be perfect. I have to visit all the places that the city offers. I can't miss out on anything. So in a way, travel nudges me into accepting uncertainty and accepting imperfection, because no matter how much you plan your travels, it will never go exactly as you planned. So travel is a really good teacher for that. And I also wanted to clarify any misunderstandings that people might have about traveling and mental health. The quotes that have been striked through are actual quotes I found on the internet, and I really don't like them at all. So I want to give a dose of reality here. So the first quote that I've striked through is, "I don't need a therapist, just a good travel agent." Okay, no, actually, you need a mental health professional. You need a therapist to guide me through my mental health struggles, and then I'll find a good travel agent. The next quote is, "If something bad happens, travel to forget it." But I say, if something bad happens, get professional help, then travel. We often think that when we travel, we're escaping our problems, but our problems can catch up to us. Think about me having OCD. I can't leave OCD at home. If I think that I'm going to escape my OCD by traveling, guess what? It's still going to come along for the ride with me. And finally, traveling is the best medicine. Although travel is so awesome, we learn so many things. We have really fulfilling days out there. It's not the best medicine. If you're going through a health condition of any kind, it's best to go to a relevant doctor. Despite all that, though, there are ways that travel can improve our overall mental health. It encourages us to get out and exercise. Physical health is correlated to mental health. You also learn how to prioritize self-care. This leads into the third bullet point of letting us rethink our way of life, because when we're out there traveling, we are no longer stuck in our 9-to-5 daily ritual, and that gives us an opportunity to be more mindful of some of the things that maybe we're missing out on in our everyday lives. I feel like when I'm traveling, I'm better able to be cognizant of my own health because I'm not distracted by my everyday rituals. When we're traveling, we're also facing new challenges, and that builds up our resilience and independence. We also become more creative, and that comes in two ways. One way is how we solve those problems that we're facing during our travels, and the other way is just by being exposed to different cultures and ways of life, and that can help us become more creative. And we can also learn to acknowledge our privilege and practice gratefulness. Whenever I go to a different place, I end up meeting people who are going through problems in their lives, and I just feel an enormous amount of privilege in that moment because these are issues that I don't have to deal with at home. So even though my life is hard with OCD and social anxiety, I still have a lot of privilege in these areas. And to learn more about any of the things I talk about, you can get the slides after the presentation. I have a blog link on each slide where you can learn more about these things. All right, now let's talk about seeking therapy. Please, if you have any mental health conditions, seek treatment before you travel. Again, please don't travel thinking that you're going to escape from your mental health conditions. I already tried that and I failed miserably. That's not going to help. So you can find a therapist with directories like Psychology Today, Inclusive Therapists. The last two, BetterHelp and Talkspace, those are directories that specialize in virtual appointments. So for us travelers, that might be really useful. And when you are going to see your therapist, work together if you're fit to travel. If your therapist thinks that now is not the right time, then make sure that you're going to see your therapist and learning the treatment methods that are best for your condition. And when you're with your therapist and you're fit to travel, please bring documentation of your mental health diagnosis and medication with you on the road in case of an emergency. And also, this is more pre-planning for your trip, but ask your therapist if during your travels, if something's happening, if you can make virtual appointments with them. It's most ideal to stick with your regular therapist because they already know your stories and your diagnoses. Going with a new therapist, you have to establish so many new things from them. And if you're in an emergency, contact the embassy, call your local emergency number, or use the crisis text line. The number for the crisis text line can be found in my blog link. And okay, how about making accessible and suitable travel plans? We are all different people, and for us who have health conditions, we need to make them accessible and suitable for us. So plan with your therapist if you can contact them from the road, like I said in the previous slide. You might also want to try traveling to nearby destinations first as a trial run. That way, you're still traveling, you're still experiencing new things, you're learning about the uncertainty of travel, but not taking in too much new stimuli. For example, if you live in the United States, you might take a trip to a different state. And you're already learning so much about travel and adapting to a new destination. And then once you feel ready with your travels within the country, then you can venture to international destinations. Also, try to get to be mindful of your symptoms. When I'm traveling, I try to be as mindful as possible. I'm known as Mindful Maggie, and for me, the mindfulness mostly comes when I'm trying to notice my OCD symptoms. We often think of mindfulness as like being in the moment, being present. That's all very true, and that goes along with my mindfulness, but mine looks kind of different because I also have to be mindful of my symptoms. So notice if you have a mental illness, notice if your symptoms arise during specific circumstances. Busy or slow plans, for me, they arise more during slow plans. Maybe certain activities, climates, other travel factors that I haven't talked about. Also, make sure you have a support system. Talk to a therapist, family, or friend in case you're going through a rough day and you can talk it out with them. It's so important to share these things with people. I can't understate that enough, because when you're sharing these things with people, you are sending a message to your mental health condition that you are strong enough to open up about this. Mental health conditions like to leave you isolated. And so by telling people, you're already seizing the day. Make sure you're having these people to check in with, or who are checking in with you, especially if you're a solo traveler. In your plans, incorporate breaks. When I was traveling in New York City and New Jersey this past summer, there were some days where I just didn't do anything. I literally had a day where all I did in Jersey City was go walk to a restaurant for lunch and come back. That's like literally the whole thing I did that day. And then in my Airbnb, I was just reading books or checking social media or whatever. And then also travel the way you want, wherever you want. There are so many travel guides out there that are telling you to go to this destination and travel this way. But at the end of the day, we're all travelers, right? But we have different interests, different things that we want to see. So just travel the way you want. And again, this is not medical advice. This is just taken from my experiences. Again, please seek your mental health professional before basing any decisions. Now, okay, travel insurance, fun stuff. When it comes to travel insurance, finding policies covering pre-existing medical illnesses, including mental illnesses, is a little bit harder, but these are the two best companies that I found after reading through their policies. The winner is Insure My Trip. Insure My Trip is an aggregator where they list different travel insurance companies, and you can filter for those travel insurance companies based on cancel for any reason and a pre-existing condition waiver. Cancel for any reason is literally that. Cancel for any reason. You don't have to explain why. You can cancel your trip. And for a pre-existing condition waiver, that will waive your pre-existing condition if you provide documentation that your condition is stable. The runner-up company is World Nomads. I was reading through different company policies, and World Nomads stood out to me because they cover hospitalization that is related to your mental illness, but they don't cover any therapist visits. Okay, medications. This is going to be a long one, but I'm going to try to summarize this as much as I can. Just want to let you know that I don't take mental health medications. All of this information is based on my extensive research And I also checked in with my pharmacist cousin who happens to specialize in psychiatry to go over this information. So there is a lot of planning when you are bringing a mental health medication abroad. And so you want to do some research, see if that mental health medication is considered a controlled substance in the country that you're planning to go. Each country has different regulations on their controlled substances. How much supply are you allowed to bring in at one time? Because again, they might regulate how much you import into the country. And once you're in the country, are you able to get refills in case you stay for longer than expected, or maybe you run out unexpectedly? So do this planning at least 1 month before your trip begins. Work with your pharmacists, doctors, mental health professionals about bringing your medication. They'll help you with the information you need to know. They'll prescribe you the amount that you need for the next few weeks or months. Also get their contact numbers in case you need any help with the medication. Ask them for official documentation to bring on your trip that explains your condition and prescription. Safe transportation of medications. Make sure that your prescriptions are in their original bottles with labels. I spoke to one of my friends. She brought her mental health medication to Japan. Japan is very strict about medication, but she kept her prescription in their original bottle and she was totally fine. If your medication is a liquid, make sure they're going to be allowed in your carry-on. And again, have that official documentation in case you're stopped by security. Spread your supply in different places. That way, in case you lose one supply, you always have another one. And keep it with you. Don't put it in your checked baggage. It could get lost or it could be damaged by the temperature changes. And also, if you always keep it with you, it's not like you're going to have one of those moments, say you're eating at a restaurant and it's time to take your medication, but your medication is in the hostel. Oh no, I left it in the hostel. So just always have some with you. Always follow the storage instructions for that medication and set a reminder on your phone to take your medication, especially if we're changing time zones, because we all know how confusing time gets when we're changing time zones. And do not change your dosage unless approved by a medical professional. Now let's talk about travel accessibility services. You might be surprised as to how many services will offer accommodations and arrangements you can acquire at airports, public transportation offices, and so on. One of my favorites is the Access Pass. You can use this at any of the national parks in America. At Disneyland and Disney World, they also offer services. To learn more about those, check out the links in the slide. My favorite resource, though, is the Hidden Disability Sunflower Lanyard. I love this little thing so much because it promotes travel accessibility in airports, and airports are stressful, whether you have a mental health condition or not. This program began at London Gatwick Airport in 2016, and since it's spread to so many airports around the world, and more airports are adopting this program. So this is how it works. You can pick it up for free at an airport that has this program. You wear this lanyard at such airports, and the airport staff are trained to recognize that lanyard and accommodate you however they can. You do not need to disclose anything about your hidden disability. And by the way, this is both physical and mental hidden disability. So this lanyard is yours for the taking. The airport staff will see that you have your lanyard. You don't have to disclose anything to them. It's just a message that says, hey, I have a hidden disability. Please give me some more time. Please help me however I want. And so they'll help you with that. Here are some more helpful tools and resources for your travels. I love global entry. If you are an American citizen, I highly recommend it. It's worth the money. It's only $20 a year for 5 years. And whether or not you have a mental health condition, we don't like long lines, right? This will expedite your entry back home to the United States, and it also grants you TSA pre-check. Also, a journal. It's such a small thing, but just please bring a journal with you. If you need to let your emotions out and process them, your journal is your BFF for that. By writing it out with your hand, it's a different way to process your emotions. Also, make sure you have a smartphone with internet capabilities so you can stay connected to your family, friends, and therapists. Keep with you all of those important phone numbers that I talked about and information about your diagnosis in case of an emergency, and also documentation if you have medication. Now, here are some more inspirational travelers who have medical conditions to follow. The only other traveler I know of so far in the travel blogging industry who's open about their OCD is Jeanne at the Anxious Travelers. There's also Lauren at Never Ending Footsteps. I love her stories. They're very authentic, and she happens to have anxiety disorder. And finally, there's Curb Free with Corey Lee. Corey Lee is a wheelchair traveler, but we often think of travel as an activity where we all have to be physically able, but Corey Lee is able to see the world from his wheelchair, and that's so awesome. All of these people are helping to break the stigma with disabilities, and it shows that even with disabilities, we are able to live the most fulfilling lives that we can. All right, here's some more pictures of me on the road. The first one is me riding in the Eurostar train between London and Paris. I'm just goofing off like I always do. Here I am in California's Death Valley National Park. Despite its ominous name, it's one of my favorite national parks for its amazing scenery. Here I am at Picacho Peak State Park in Arizona between Phoenix and Tucson. It's the hardest hike I've ever done, climbing up that mountain, but I did it, woohoo! And finally, here I am when I was 11 years old in Colorado with my Nintendo DS because I'm also an avid gamer. Now, you're here with us at a very special time because in the middle of October every year, the OCD community and the International OCD Foundation hosts OCD Awareness Week. And this year is from October 10th to the 16th. Just like them, I'm collecting donations for the IOCDF to help people with OCD and related disorders get the treatment they need so that way they can live a freer life. The IOCDF provides services like increasing access to treatment, giving treatment training to professionals so that way they can be trained to treat OCD. This is a really unfortunate statistic, but it takes an average of 7 years for a person with OCD to seek the therapy they need. They might be misdiagnosed, or unfortunately, there's not, like, OCD treatment is still not standardized. So it takes a long time for many people to get the help they need. The IOCDF also provides resources and events for the community of people with OCD. That way they can be more educated about the disorder and feel less alone. And finally, your money would go to supporting scientific research about OCD. We would appreciate any donation, whether it's $1, $5, $10. I started the donation campaign with $5. If you're able to share this campaign too, I would appreciate that so much. And if you want to, you can take your phone out and scan the QR code so you can be taken straight to the donation page. I'll just leave a few seconds for you to do that. All right. And that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate your willingness to learn more about traveling with a mental health condition. I really appreciate your empathy and just your willingness to learn, because by doing so, you're an ally. And with this knowledge, you're helping to destigmatize mental illnesses through travel. On Instagram, I can be found at Mindful Meggie Travel, and I'm at Mindful Meggie everywhere else: Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, TikTok. I'm most active on Instagram and Twitter. If you like Club Penguin or you like video games, then you can follow me on Twitter at Tech70CP. And then you can download the slides of this presentation for your future reference. You can scan the QR code that's shown on your screen, so that way you can be taken right up to my email sign-up page. You'll also get some starter guides about mindfulness while traveling. So there you go. That's the end of my presentation. Again, thank you everybody for listening in. I can't wait to hear your questions. Let's get the conversation going.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meggie. Everyone, I am dropping lots of awesome links in the chat to connect with Meggie. Meggie, do you mind going back one slide so we can leave that up for just a minute? OCD Awareness Week.
Okay.
Yeah. The timing for this presentation was great, and I'm happy that you decided to come speak with the Nomadic Network during this week. So if you are able to support, like I said in the beginning, if you're able to support Meggie, whether it's like a monetary donation or if you want to support her work, you found this information valuable. I dropped all of her information in the chat, a lot of great links there. And don't worry, we will also be sending out this presentation to all the attendees after the event. So yeah. We can go ahead with some questions. If anyone has any questions, you can actually, since we're a small group, if you want to come off mute and ask your question, I'm sure Meggie would love that, make this conversation and a smaller, intimate conversation. If you don't want to come off mute and ask your question, then I have no issues saying it out loud and Meggie and I can answer it. So Ali and Rebecca, if either one of you would love to go first, we'd love to hear from you.
Oh yeah, sorry, it just took me a minute to get off mute there. I wasn't sure if you had any websites you recommended for looking at medication requirements for different countries. I know it's sometimes a little hard to find that. I wasn't sure if it'd be on the State Department websites or something like that.
Yeah, that information can be hard to find, especially because it's inconsistent. For some countries, it may not be clear whether your medication is considered a controlled substance or not. It's best to go to your mental health professional or doctor for that information. You are able to research this on your own though. And if you go to my blog post about mental health medications, I've listed websites that have that information potentially.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep, of course.
Thanks, Rebecca. Oh yeah, Ali, go ahead.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Ali.
Awesome. Yeah, I think my question was already answered in the chat, but I kind of want to ask your opinion. Do you think there's a stigma in regards to not seeking mental health treatment and all that?
Oh yeah, there's a barrier with that. Unfortunately, as I was saying in the presentation, I try to look at this stuff as objectively as possible. But a lot of people, when they think about having a mental health condition, they feel shame. They feel ashamed. They feel guilty. They're like, why do I have something like this? And people can also be worried about what others might think. That's one reason why I kept my OCD symptoms hidden for 8 years, because I felt that shame. I didn't know what I had and I was scared. I didn't I was scared about what I could possibly have. I was scared about what my family might think. And so, yeah, there is a barrier towards getting help. So that's why I'm trying to destigmatize it. I'm trying to share as many objective facts about mental illness as I can, because we feel that shame, we feel that guilt, but at the end of the day, it's a health condition, a medical disorder. It wasn't anybody's fault. It's just something that some people unfortunately have. And just like how we check up with our physical doctor about our blood pressure or other physical symptoms, we should also be treating mental health the same way. I try to look at this as objectively as possible. By seeking mental health treatment, you're taking care of your overall health and well-being.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's a little personal. It's okay if we discuss a little personal story about me and my mental health. So
Yeah, if you're comfortable.
yeah, I won't go into details, but I personally have a mental health condition that was left diagnosed, and I had those near me that were saying, "Oh, this is nothing. Just get over it or suck it up." And sadly, it wasn't until my primary care doctor noticed me one day, and he's like, "You don't look so well." And of course, he got me. Of course, we got into a therapist and all that, and so yeah, I think that's kind of where that stigma came from, was just that those near me were just telling me just to ignore it. But I eventually saw a counselor, and I eventually saw a therapist, and eventually I saw my primary care doctor, and now I'm getting this treated. So
Right. Thank you so much for being vulnerable with us today. I know it can be scary opening up about a mental health condition. It's like, I really admire folks like you for doing that. It's something that I try to do every day. We have to be the first people to take that
yeah,
brave step. Unfortunately, it's seen as a brave thing to open up because um, I feel like this stuff should be more normalized. And about what your family was saying about treating it as if it was just a thing you could get by, it's nothing like that. It's like, it's a real health condition that can impede on the quality of your life. And for people who might be neurotypical, they haven't experienced how heavy it can be to have a mental health condition. And so based on their limited knowledge about it, they might just see it as something that you can easily brush off on. That's another factor that's related to the stigma of mental health. So like, these conversations we're having are so important because we're educating the public, we're educating our family and friends about what mental health really is. So thank you,
yeah,
Ali.
yeah. And when I took that first step back in, I think it was 2014 or something like that, when I took that first step, that was like the hardest step of all.
It definitely was like, oh, but once you made that first step, it becomes a little bit easier. I mean, it's like, it's still really difficult, but that first step is the hardest one of all. And if you did that, you can give yourself a pat on the back just for doing that.
I have
Yes,
something
thank
to add really quick, if you don't
Go
mind.
ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, William.
What I noticed that there's a lot of stigma in the workforce. If you're either in high-paying jobs or just internship, there's still a lot of, I think, there's still a lot to talk about as far as mental health goes, and how can we destigmatize just a whole verbiage of mental illness, psychiatry, and et cetera in the mental health field.
And you're asking specifically in the workforce, William?
Yeah, mostly in the workforce.
Ooh, now this one is a little bit tougher. I'm still a university student. I haven't done that much work in the workforce yet. I will tell you though that luckily right now I'm having a part-time job at my university, Arizona State University. And in the interview process and in my resume, I briefly talk about my advocacy efforts for mental health. And I think during my interview, I also talked about having OCD and social anxiety with my future boss, who's now my boss, and they still granted me a position as a writing mentor for English courses at ASU. So I'm very grateful for that. I wish that there were more workplaces like Arizona State University. I actually, the other day, I was having a conversation from somebody who lives in a different country, and they were telling me about the stigmas in the workforce, how employers might disregard your application if they know that you have a medical condition of some sort. And I've received emails from others about this too. Unfortunately, I cannot change what goes on in the workforce directly. I would just say this though, try to seek out an equal opportunity employer like Arizona State University. And we just need to have mental health in the mainstream, and hopefully that will change the minds of some of the people in the workforce.
I can add to that a little bit if you want.
All right, go ahead, Lisa.
Hey, so I work with job seekers, so I know a little bit about this. I'm definitely not an expert, but the Americans with Disabilities Act does cover some mental health conditions, so things like depression, and requires employers to give reasonable accommodations, really broad term, for employees who have documented disabilities. Those only, I believe they only apply to companies with more than 50 employees. So if you want to make sure you are protected, you want to have a larger company. And then you want to probably talk to HR. It's up to you when in the process you want to disclose. Some people are really proud of their mental health history and the advocacy work and other things that they've done. And there are places to put that on their resume, and they can talk about that as a strength. Some people don't want to say anything about it. And if you don't need any differences, accommodations in the interview process, you don't have to. You can do it just after they've already given you the offer. But I would really recommend also, just if you're curious about different companies and their culture, look at their social media, see if they are promoting mental health in the way that they talk, or whether their employees maybe talk about their company on LinkedIn. Ask for conversations with some people at companies that you're interested in and see how supportive they are. And it also might vary department to department or manager to manager. So those are some things. And unfortunately, we can't, it's a lot of stigma. It's a big behemoth. We can't change everything, but you can kind of prioritize seeking out the people who are going to be more supportive, who are going to be more receptive. And I think the pandemic has done a lot to make people a lot more willing to come forward and a lot more aware of the fact that we're going through a lot right now. And a lot of workplaces want to be and are moving towards being more sensitive to those things. We still got a long way to go, but those are some ways to kind of try to take that into your own hands when you don't have complete control of the process.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for all of that information. That was so useful and valuable.
I have a question for Meggie too.
Yep. Hello.
Hi, Meggie, I have a question. My question is, when you think about travel, do you, my question is really about solo travel versus group travel and how that kind of fits in your thinking about your mental illness and travel. Do you have any thoughts about that when you plan your travel?
So when you mean group travel, you just mean
like
just like one or more people, whether they're family or friends?
It could be that, or it could be, I've experienced a lot of travel with companies like G Adventure and Intrepid, where you meet up with 15 other people and a tour leader, so you have 15 new friends, which for some people, might might be anxiety, or for some people might be comforting, you know, because you're traveling with other people. That kind of group travel, I think more, but it could be
I
just,
see.
you know, a group of 6 friends or something traveling somewhere. Do you have any thoughts about that? How that fits into your, you know, your notion of travel with your mental illness?
Just me personally, I've done both. I've solo traveled. I've also done that kind of group tour. I honestly, I haven't really considered, like, this is just me personally, but I haven't considered my mental health conditions as a factor when I'm planning that. In the case of solo travel, for example, I did it because I wanted the freedom to do anything I wanted as a traveler, to go to all the attractions I wanted, to hit the sack whenever I wanted, that kind of freedom. And for group traveling, I did that for a multi-day backpacking adventure in the wilderness, and I don't have much experience with that. So I signed up for a group tour because I wanted them to help me with some camping things that I didn't know about. So, but there are people out there who might prefer solo travel or group travel. Like I said, it really depends on what you like the most. And if you have a condition of some sort, to also potentially consider how that might factor into whether you're traveling solo or traveling with a group. It really depends. There's so many different people with so many different backgrounds, stories, and potentially health conditions.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for your question, Luann.
Okay, I'll ask Ava's question. So Ava had a question. How can we find out which airports offer the Hidden Disabilities Program?
So you can go to the Hidden Disabilities website. They have a map and a list of airports around the world that offer the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Lanyard program. Because this was something that began in the United Kingdom, actually, this program can also be found at so many places like grocery stores, public transportation stations. The UK has really done an excellent job implementing this. So, you know, eventually I want to go back to the UK and see this for myself by wearing this lanyard at so many public places around the UK, to see what the staff might do to accommodate me. But yeah, just go to the Hidden Disabilities website and they'll have the airports where they support the program. And you can also go to my blog. I've also listed those airports.
Ooh, thanks for the tip. Thanks for your question, Ava. Thanks for the tip, Meggie. I dropped the website. I believe this is the correct one, right, Meggie?
Yep, that's the one.
Perfect. And then if you need Maggie's blog again, I'm going to drop
Maggie,
it
quick
in.
question, you guys don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, William.
What clinic do you recommend if you want to check if we have OCD or not? 'Cause I think I might have it. Just a little bit of background. I'm from Vietnam, first generation. So there goes
Right.
that. Oh.
All right. Thanks, William, for sharing your vulnerability with us. That takes a lot, and I admire that. A OCD clinic, if you go to the IOCDF website, which is iocdf.org, they have a list of clinics and doctors that treat OCD. If you're wondering about whether you have OCD or not, though, this is just based off of my experience. But before I got diagnosed, I didn't know what I had. I was looking at the different therapists in my area, but the more I was looking, the more I was thinking, I don't know if I should see a therapist if I don't even know what I had. So the first thing I did actually was go see a psychiatrist who diagnosed me with the name of the condition. And the only reason I went to see him was to get that name. And that name was OCD. That already saved me so much time versus if I went to a random therapist, and they didn't know exactly what I had. Like, therapists, they can help you diagnose, but based on my experience, I feel like going to a psychiatrist would be faster in getting the name of the condition you have. And once you know the name of that condition, you can go online and Google those clinics and doctors that treat the condition that you've been diagnosed with. And so in the case of OCD, again, go to the IOCDF website, and yeah, you'll find a directory of people who know how to treat OCD.
Thanks, Meggie. And then there's some chatter going on in the chat with Melanie and Lisa jumping in with some great information. Sometimes you need to, yeah, I I think I have like the lowest level of insurance where I need to see a PCP for everything. And that's what I get for picking the lowest level of insurance, that I need referrals everywhere, which feels more expensive. Health insurance in the US, whole different story, whole different topic.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, whole different topic. Dave has a great story, or has some talk in here as well. Thanks for sharing, Dave. Dave's had some interesting experiences that he's been dropping in the chat, so thank you. But before we jump off, Meggie, I think I missed a question up here from Steve, I believe, and he hasn't come off of mute yet. So I'll go ahead and ask Steve's question. Wondering if you could give some advice about getting prescriptions filled while traveling. Steve will be in Europe for about 6 months, but can only get our prescriptions filled for 3 months at a time. Do you know anything about getting a US RX in English filled in Croatia, or do you know where you can direct people to find that information?
So are you able to get only 3 months of supply because that is the limitation of your prescription? Or is that because the countries that you're visiting limit the amount that you can import? That I'm not sure. I don't know the specifics. It depends on so many variables, the prescription itself, the countries you're planning to go to. So again, just please visit my blog. I don't have the specifics, but I do have resources where you could potentially find that information. You might also try just doing a Google search of that country and your prescription. If you can't find anything, you might be able to contact the embassy of that country and find out the details about it. But I think the best resource is your pharmacist or your doctor, because they might have more insider information on that.
Thank you, Maggie. This is Steve. Thank you for
Steve.
that.
Yep, you're
Yeah.
very welcome. Thanks for
I
joining
appreciate it.
us.
I actually spoke to the doctor and to the pharmacist, and the doctor was willing to give me a 6-month prescription, but the pharmacist would only fill it for 3 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you ask the pharmacist why, Steve?
It's probably an insurance thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
insurance. There it is again.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
know that insurance is always sneaking up on us like that.
I just want to jump in
So-
there too. So actually there are travel waivers for insurance policies to fill 6-month prescriptions at a time. So you might just have to clear that with your insurance and get a prior authorization, and they sometimes will fill it for the 6 months. I know when I studied abroad, I had to get 6 months worth of medication at once, and they just had to write 2 separate prescriptions and do a prior authorization.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Rebecca. Much appreciated.
I'm learning so much today.
Yes.
Thank you, Meggie, for being here, spearheading all of it. So, and thank you everyone else for being vulnerable, coming with your amazing questions, your amazing stories and your experiences and sharing them. We know that's not always easy in a public forum. So we really appreciate that. And you never know when your experiences can help someone else. So thank you again for sharing, whether it was out loud or in the chat. So please connect with Meggie. Please give her the support. We'd love to to see her share her knowledge with everyone else across the interwebs and across the world, across the network. And with that, I will go ahead and just share some closing slides. Oh, Meggie, I'm gonna.
Yep,
Sorry.
got you right there.
No worries. Okay, so I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Nomadic Mat Plus is our membership network. It's nomadicmat.com/NM Plus. You could also scan the QR code here. This is an amazing membership network. We have different levels of pricing. If you found this presentation with Meggie helpful today and you want to dive deeper into whatever else TNN has to offer, just know that you can also get TNN event replays. We have monthly giveaways now, which is awesome. People are winning like hotel vouchers and flight vouchers and books and signed items. So it's a lot of fun. Personal stories, input on the content we create, live Q&As that Matt does pretty regularly, free signed books, etc. So I encourage you to check it out. It's a really great network where you can meet even more people than you do in the presentations here. Oops, I think, I don't want to go this far. Okay, so our upcoming events, you'll see, oh, I'm sorry, this is a little outdated, but we have New York, if you're in the New York area, in-person happy hour tomorrow. Thursday, Women Traveling Solo 101 with the founder of Wonderful. This is also a female-powered travel community that's amazing. So Beth will be sharing her experiences. And if you go to nomadicnetwork.com/events, you'll see all the events. We have them planned out, I believe, for the next 2 months. So a lot of wonderful things going on. You can keep up to date there. Our next book club is the November book club, Wednesday, November 3rd. With Dr. Anu Tarnath. I hope I didn't butcher her name, Beyond Guilt Trips. So like I said, you have plenty of time to read the book. You don't even have to finish the book in order to come to the book club. Matt will be hosting himself, and we'd love to see you all there. You can come get your questions answered, share your experiences, what you loved about the book, and just meet others. So again, this wouldn't be the same if it was just Meggie and I chatting, especially during this important week with a timely presentation. So thank you so much for coming engaged with all your stories and your questions and your experiences. And I know that some of you have helped others today. Meggie has definitely helped everyone in the room. So again, thank you. And we hope to see you next time, where you will bring a friend to the next presentation. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening or morning or
Thank you.
afternoon, wherever you are in the world.
Wherever you are.
Yep.